Let's do it. Alrighty, here we go. My name is Marty Fox from WHITEFOX. Now, here's the deal.
Well, this is another episode of With the Fox. WTF with you, joined by, and if you're not actually watching this episode, just listening to it, Marty Fox, dressed like, you look like a character out of like that 1960s war movie when they used to wear those big jackets in the planes.
I love winter in Melbourne.
I like that jacket.
Good jacket.
I think I got one of those jackets.
Very, very good.
It's from flannel.
There you go.
Got it when
Very
Callum
cool.
Richardson's partner was working there.
A little throwback.
Yeah.
And the voice you just heard there is our guest today, a man who's done incredible things and really changed the face of, I want to say tanning in Australia, amongst other things. 13 years ago, alongside another man, started a brand that is now synonymous with beauty in Australia. And I talk of Shaun Wilson. It's great to have you with us. Former CEO of Bondi Sands.
Correct.
You just stepped out of that role, mate. It's so great to have you with us. And there's a lot that we want to cover, including Marty's white bottom, which we've seen all over the news recently.
Yeah,
Probably needs a
mate.
little tanning, mate.
Like, how's that? Herald Sun,
We need
white
a bum
ass.
tan. New products coming out.
Unbelievable.
The one comment everyone kept saying is Marty needs a tan.
Hey,
Well, so
funny
do I,
story
mate.
though. I've just left my place because it's on the market.
Yep.
And Dad's over giving the maintenance to the gardens and everything. He's got his little cowboy hat on. Pistol Pete. And he goes, Martin, where are you going? I said, I've got to go do a podcast up in HQ. And he goes, and who's that with? You know, he speaks. And I said, Shaun Wilson. He goes, hold on, Shaun Wilson? I said, yeah. He goes, tell him I say hi. I said, well, how do you know Shaun? He goes, well, when I used to work at the RACV and had my hair salon there, I used to cut his hair when you were, I didn't know you were a PT.
Yes, I was. I started as a personal trainer.
Did you know that was my dad?
No. No. I started as a personal trainer at the club, and then when we moved to RACV City Club on Burke Street, that's where he was.
Yes.
And then I went into management positions, but I actually started as a PT when I was finishing my course.
But that's not that long ago.
I was 23, but he would probably remember me when I was, more management positions. But I did start when I was 23, which was 19 years ago. So it was a while ago.
There you go.
Still, that's a great connection.
Pistol Pete remembers and he said to say hello.
That's fantastic. That's amazing.
And he said, let me know how his hair is.
That's so good.
Trying to grow it. Get a bit receding.
That's the next point. Well, just quickly, actually, while we talk about dads, just a little background. Now, you grew up with a father who was a champion footballer, right? He was, champion the 70s and 80s, known for his hardness, for his kind of like ruthlessness, wore a
Which
helmet.
team?
Gary Wilson, played for Fitzroy.
Oh, wow.
Champion. So what are your memories, out of curiosity? Because, there's such a formative part of being a child. When you've got a dad like that, what are your memories of having a dad playing VFL footy?
So he finished in 84 and I was born 82. So I haven't got great memories in playing.
Sure.
But I do remember at the time, football was still quite amateur, and Dad and actually Lee Matthews went professional together the first time in VFL history. So he actually treated footy really as a full-time job for the last few years. And then my first memories really of footy as a kid was my nickname people gave me. They called me Sog, son of Gary. And it was very embarrassing because I never got the gene of my dad's footy skills. So I was just hammered at that in terms of my childhood. And
Doesn't really roll off the tongue either, Sog.
No. But
Sog.
Every time we had a Fitzroy function, I was passionate at Fitzroy. Unfortunately, Fitzroy went through some financial troubles at the end, and we merged with Brisbane Bears, which was fantastic for the club. But during
Do you go
that,
for the Bears?
I don't actually. There's a story around that because really through the late 80s, early 90s, we went to the finals a lot. And the finals were mainly Essendon and Hawthorn. But I really liked Essendon, and I was seeing players like Gavin Wageneen and James Hurd. So I actually went for Essendon now. I've been quite passionate of Essendon.
With your dad's blessing, or was he a bit sad about it?
He liked James Hurd as well,
Okay.
so he liked players. But I got a soft spot for Brisbane Lions, and Dad still follows them. But they've been fantastic for the tradition of the club, keeping that history. And obviously they had a huge success under Lee Matthews through those early 2000s as well, and obviously the last couple of years too. So they've been great for keeping the Fitzroy supporters really engaged here in Melbourne. It's really important because they've got a really big supporter base. So it's been great for.
So what was your dad like out of footy? Because he's had a big career, and then obviously he's now transitioning out of footy when you're a young kid. Was he still in that? Because I understand a lot of footy players struggle with identity when they leave that, when they are known as Gary Wilson, the champion footy player. Like, what was his path, and how did you sort of see him?
I think Dad really took the routine and structure out of football. He got up at 4:30, 5 o'clock, trained for a couple of hours before he had his full-time job, came back and trained. Mum said he never saw Dad for 14 years and he was constantly tired. But he took that to business, and he made a decision when we were young to move from Greensborough down to Murdoch, which is next to Mornington, to be really the first sort of large producer of Ingham's chickens. And he wanted that change in career, one, to be lifestyle orientated and had interest in farming. So
I knew that people loved eating chicken.
yeah. So he really, probably the first time I got to understand scaling a business in terms of understanding how to get a model in place. And Dad then bought a number of different farms across Victoria and became one of the largest producers of chickens. And I sort of understood management, scaling, how do you do that at quite a young age? And I find that, not the farming side, but I found the business side quite interesting. But he really had structure, and Mum, huge, hard workers. Really, it was a hard job. Like, you're getting up at 4, 5 a.m. You got late night chickens in terms of getting picked up in the middle of the night. I remember as a kid.
Were you working on the chicken farm?
He tried to get me engaged with the chicken farm. I wasn't. I certainly wasn't that willing to do it.
So my brother, our CMO,
Yes.
I remember when I was studying at university in Dunedin, he worked at a chicken farm.
Okay.
And he said it was full on. It was tough.
It's very tough.
It was like pretty confronting too.
I've always known I've been a city slicker, even though I lived in the country for 14 years, and then we moved across to Mount Eliza, and I moved up to Docklands when I was about 20. So, but at that sort of age,
You were just drawn to the city.
I always was, and I had interests, loved sport, had interest in business, and I've always my sort of career ambition was to be a CEO of a company. So I had that at a bit of an early age.
Why did you want that though?
I think through my schooling, and particularly university, I was really engaged in terms of people models, and I like the idea of leading a certain product or service idea. And that always was really engaging to me. And I was very fortunate through some of my early jobs, whether it's through the National Bank or some other corporate jobs before I went to RACV, to understand that structure a bit more in corporate Melbourne. But I really enjoyed that.
Was the dream to always take an idea to an exit? Was that something that was inspiring in your head from books that you had read or people that you looked up to?
Definitely. And when I look back at RACV, we had a CEO called Colin Jordan, who RACV at the time, really from a money point of view, was making money through insurance. Roadside was really just a membership offering. What Colin Jordan had, the diversification strategies, how do we diversify the member offering? And he looked at purchasing other resorts. So he got RACV City Club, Cape Shank, Torquay, Noosa, Royal Pines.
And these are amazing resorts. I've been to them, and
really good.
If you've got young kids, they offer everything.
So I was really part of the lifestyle side of that. So golf courses, gyms and day spas and setting them up, and really enjoyed that and worked under some great executives. And I remember telling Colin Jordan when I was 23, I think it was the first 6 months in, I wanted his job.
Is that what you said to him?
I did.
And did he think, come on, mate, you're an upstart?
And he was a CEO. To be honest, I don't know, maybe he will hear this or not, but he was quite autocratic and probably a little bit different in terms of leadership style, but he had a photographic memory. He was a really strong governance, business cases, written communication, but also a very good visionary in terms of diversification of the business. I think he did a great job, but he gave me a lot of opportunities, and the executives there did. And it was great to learn a lot in corporate structure through my 20s. And I did my Masters of Business over that few years as well. And it really set me up, I think, to help me get into something that I was passionate by to drive and grow.
And for those that don't understand, the gravity of what you've achieved with Bondi Sands, there's things that you can and can't discuss. But just as a snippet before we understand the journey, you sold it how many years ago?
Sold it in 2023.
Is there any media around the sort of numbers?
Yes. So the media says it was around 450, which is close enough by 1 or 2%. But ultimately, we signed our agreement back in July 2023, and we have to go through what's called a FIRB approval, and that took a few months. And
Where are they from? What country?
America, subsidiary Borders. Cow Corporation is a Japan parent company, subsidiary of US Borders. And it was an extensive sales process and a number of different bidders within the program. And
But we're talking about a $500 million acquisition.
yeah, and it was really...
And to have multiple bidders at that point in time, it must be exciting sitting back watching the offers come through.
It was incredible. I think in reflection, I've spoken to my CFO. I saw him a couple of weeks ago now with a new company, but he was huge in terms of the process, plus our leadership team. I think it's very challenging when you're exiting a business because, one, you want to keep it confidential. You have to keep it confidential because that's really part of the deal. So you don't want any leaking happening, and that's quite difficult because ultimately there's a lot of advisors around you, and sometimes it does get leaked. So then you got to keep the culture of the group because sometimes sales don't go through. And therefore, how do you keep the company engaged with it? And then...
But how many people are in a nucleus when there's a deal of that magnitude?
We had 8. So really our leadership team were aware at some stage. Some were a bit more aware early on. But it's incredibly difficult because you're not only selling your business to a big multinational, that is drilling you in terms of due diligence, from legal to governance to IP to innovation to your formulas to your strategy to your growth strategy, your staffing, everything. And you're not set up. So, for example, Cow Corporation's got 30,000 staff, their market cap of 25 billion. We've got 2 people across legal in our businesses. We're not even lawyers. We outsource that. So you're getting drilled by lawyers who have been in the game for a very long time. And I think it was really... I said to my leadership team, I've always been big on you being generalists. And it doesn't matter if the CMO, the CFO, a chief of innovation, we are generalist leaders. And what that means is that we understand different departments and we've got a holistic strategy towards growth and we understand each of our department's strategy. It's really important.
I love that mindset. It is the mindset of this business as well.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to get in and understand what each department's doing because if they're not seeing something, the other team members within that leadership group can spot it and know how to articulate, how to either course correct or adapt to make sure that we're actually winning that overall strategy.
Exactly, Marty. Yeah. So I think our leadership team really stood up over that time and across the business. And
8 people, it's not that many.
No, especially when you're on a call. I remember some calls we were on and on the other side there might be 40 people from different countries drilling you on your due diligence. So you not only have to be very quick and responsive, you also got to make sure you get the right people answering those questions well within the room. So look, it was a very, I love the experience looking back. Tess would say I didn't sleep for a year, which probably was right.
How long did the deal take? 12 months?
Yeah, it really took 12 months from start to finish to a degree, probably a little bit longer because it takes a while.
Did it ever feel like it was wobbly?
Yes. Well, in a sense, in terms of have we presented enough? Have we done the right governance ourselves to put the position ourselves for the right exit? And sometimes what you don't know is what you don't know. Like in terms of we made some very good decisions early on to engage the right people to help in the structure of our business, the different entities. Like Bondi Sands HQ, yes, we've got an Australian operating company, but also a UK operating company, US operating company, where our IP sits within our organisation. All these things are absolutely critical when you sell your business. At the time, I was probably a little bit flippant on it. Like I didn't really understand. If someone bought that internationally, what's a better outcome for them to transfer IP across the operating entities? I think Did you have different shareholders in different regions before the exit?
No.
Yeah, no.
Did your IP sit within the Australian entity?
Part of it.
Part of it.
Yeah. So we decentralized our business quite early on. It was quite a big change in our business. I thought it was really important for us to have a multinational approach to it. So what decentralized means is you have a centralized approach to certain areas of business, and it could be, in our instance, it was innovation, brand, but we really decentralized the P&L. So we had a managing director, our GM in the major countries who reported up to myself, and they really were responsible for the operating profit and loss of the company at a UK or US level or Canada level. So it really set up as a multinational. Now, with that sort of change though, what do you centralize? What do you decentralize? It is a really healthy conflict you'll have. And I've looked at now being in sales process, I've seen the multinationals do it differently. And how they approach it. So it's really what's right for us in terms of high growth. And we're about high growth. So how do we high growth, scale quick, but also have the right controls in our brand? Your brand's absolutely key. I'm a massive believer. If you're a founder of a business or a leader of a business, you need to understand your touch points in your brand. And we spent over the last 13 years, I would have spent 6 years overseas, living overseas, looking at the brand, building the right culture with our executive team. And some of our executive teams, they lived in the UK, they lived in the US. So they had huge sacrifices for our company.
And it's part of that because other markets to see brands differently and see the lifestyle that you're selling differently, as well as the business side of it.
And I think some
so did your brand have different personalities in different cities?
Exactly. And some brands will chase revenue probably a bit too much and not thinking about the brand equity. And when I say that, might dump it to a distributor. And I say dump it because that's really what it is. You give it to a distributor who will on-sell it. But really, what are the brand controls around that in terms of, is it the right retailer? Have you got the right point of sale? Are you looking at it from a customer service point of view? Who's actually presenting in the retail meetings? So that's really important when you scale. So we spent a lot of time on that. Even when we had distributors, we're quite innovative that every time we had a distributor in a market that was doing more than $1 million, we'd have a brand manager sitting next to them. That was our employee. Because we want to use the leverage of a distributor. They understand retailing. They could buy our stock. They could scale quickly.
When you said you had people reporting into you around the world, how many of those GMs were there?
4.
4 GMs globally. Where were they all placed?
Australia, New Zealand, UK, Canada, and US.
Okay. And was it their responsibility to go out and find the different retailers, the different channels, the different marketers to bring to you to essentially either approve or deny?
Under Arasi, so really under that sort of guidelines of the company. So I said to the HQ that our biggest thing as leaders, we need to be clear. And clarity is everything. Clarity in terms of our vision, clarity in terms of scaling the next steps, how we're going to achieve the metrics we want to achieve in our business. And that could be brand health, revenue, profitability, innovation, whatever these key metrics are, which we need to define, we're going to be very clear with it.
What were Bondi Sands' key metrics?
First and foremost, from a performance point of view, and we'll come back to brand values and vision statements, which is really important, but sometimes you lose sight. What does that actually mean in terms of producing a tangible product and a result? For us, we want to make sure performance-wise, we're number one self-tanning brand in the world.
And you had a lot of competitors when you came into the market?
We did, yeah. And I remember the time when I met Blair in Port Melbourne. He had a salon.
Blair being your co-founder.
Co-founder.
And also before...
Should we go back?
I'm really loving this whole exit story. I'm getting quite inspired. I'm pulling you out of here for 4 hours at some point.
I know.
Just quickly.
I can see his ears.
Yeah. And look at the exit.
But with your co-founder, when we go to the start, had you started a business prior to Bondi Sands? Or was this the first and then it became the
This
unicorn?
was my first business at this... Yeah, definitely at this scale.
Yeah.
Blair had a tanning shop, but obviously it's a really small business.
But that would have to be quite rare to be a first-time founder and to have a unicorn exit. I mean, that's hard to find.
I agree. I agree. Yeah. I do think though, this is where when you have a business partner, I'm not sure what it looks like for you, Marty or Shura, in terms of when you bring people on, but it's really important that you understand your role within growth and what you're trying to achieve for your customers. And I think Blair and I had a really good fit because I really see Blair as an inventor and he was really good at understanding product. And I think where I came in was more entrepreneurial in terms of, okay, that's a product, but how do we grow it across our company? So we really had it, but we also understood each area because I love eventing as well and Blair was very entrepreneurial too. So I think though, as a team, the number one thing that's really important for a business partner or a co-founder is your vision. And Blair or I were always aligned in that vision. Yes, we had disagreements sometimes of how we're going to get there, but that's really important as well based on having a business partner.
So how did it come about and how old were you? Where did the idea spring from?
Take us to the start. Take us to the
Yes. So as I mentioned, I was at RXV and
Getting your hair cut by Pistol Pete.
Yep. And I met Blair at in Bay Street, Port Melbourne. He had a tanning salon, which was really
We're getting solid.
solariums. I actually wasn't. I actually was looking at spray tanning a little bit, but I met him there, but it was more struck a friendship, and I live around the corner and we went to a local cafe there, and Blair and I were quite entrepreneurial about ideas, and I was doing my master's at the time. I had this project of looking at a certain consumable category. I said to Blair, I wouldn't mind looking at self-tan, and what can you tell me about the whole category?
Was
And he
solariums being banned at this point?
No, it wasn't.
No.
And we'll talk about that political
Sure.
factor because that was huge in terms of the category. But at the time, no. And it was still quite a strong business. People were very mindful of it at the time, but it was still pretty strong business, solariums.
Yep.
But what Blair was really clear on, he said, look, salon quality sprays, there's such a big gap between a salon quality spray tan, which you'll probably pay $50, $60. In America, you're paying $140 for a spray tan. It's not the greatest experience. You got to get in your car, drive to a shop, get a spray tan,
You're
come
sticky.
back, you're sticky, going back. The outcome's really strong to a do-it-yourself product. So the do-it-yourself products, really at the time, there was Latan and Saint Tropez. Now I really talk about those two brands because one was a lower end, affordable mass market brand. And Saint Tropez at the time, they did change their strategy later on because of us, but they were really the higher end brand, high price point, a bit more luxury. What we thought is how to reduce, first and foremost, what is the customer obstacle here? It's a great quality tan that's accessible, that's convenient. And also from a price point, how can we make out that's really $5 per tan? If we can get it around that $20, and this is really innovative in itself and price positioning, is how can we produce the quality we want for a COGS we want, cost of goods, and position it right for the market.
So it's luxury, but it's still affordable.
And the biggest thing for us is masstige, and we talked masstige for 10 years. Like we are a masstige brand, and what that means is we're not the cheapest, we're not the most expensive, but we come across premium, and that's really important in our marketing. You've got to do that. And we had events throughout Bondi for 10 years and had an incredible time around the world, but from sponsoring Coachella to launching products.
What I
Spain.
loved was when I was sitting at the Aussie Open.
Yes.
And I'm at like one of the most iconic sporting events in the planet.
world, yeah.
And I
Yes.
just see
Bondi.
Bondi sands everywhere. And I just thought, fuck, this is
Yeah,
so
because great.
cool.
Giving away product. There was a lot of sunscreen.
Sampling,
You sampled.
Yeah, we'll talk about the SBF in terms of how we sort of diversified across that. But ultimately, it was really about just self-tan and how do we do that initially. And we spent probably 6 to 9 months. We're looking back, it wasn't a huge amount of time, but we're lucky enough to know someone who worked at a manufacturer, quite good at SBF, but also had some learnings around tanning. What we wanted to do, and without getting too technical, is really understanding the active ingredients in tanning, how we change that. So the active levels, but also the dye structure of tanning. Tanning was really at the time quite orange, and it was a yellow base formula. We wanted a more green base red dye structure. But it was innovative because no one's really done it at a do-it-yourself product level. So we took it didn't take that long, but it felt like it took ages. But it was about 6 to 9 months. At the time, you got no money for mass consumer trials or
Just friends and family.
Friends and family.
I say, please
And
tell
to
me
be honest
you're
with you,
tanned every week.
I tell this to any founder out there, that is the most important thing sometimes. If you've got a trusted network of friends and family, I use a few people from university as well. And really important for us to have different skin types. So fair, medium, dark. That was really important for us to have that variety of skin. But if you
And
can
different
have that,
nationalities.
Exactly. But we used to get people around to our apartment and we just had like people walking past us looking at the tan. We did that for weeks, just looking at, and also getting people, myself even, having one leg was Saint Tropez, one leg was Bondi Sands, one arm was Latan, one arm was maybe Pure Tan, something else in the market. So it was really
Ever a
looking at
bad
it.
rash in the trial period?
Look, we definitely didn't nail it straight away. And I can talk to you about an obstacle we had when we first launched the brand. But ultimately, we got there. We produced a product that we're really happy about. We thought the price positioning at COGS was nearly there. Based on further scale, we believe we get the price even further down with the manufacturer. That's okay. We're at a good level in terms of GP margin. We understood the commercials, what we wanted to do. But also when you're producing a product, I had no experience in manufacturing, either the Blair, no experience in retailing, no experience really in...
Was there a lot of leakage in this process?
There was. Yeah, there was. But ultimately, we had a really clear vision. We understood that if we could create a really strong, not just a strong product, the best product at the right price point that represented the Australian personality, was a huge marketing gap we saw. Sand, sea and sun, the Australian lifestyle. How do we put that in a bottle and sell that?
Because that's the brand perspective of the name. Because what's it? Sorry, excuse my ignorance. What's the sweet spot on a tan lasting? How long did you want that thing to last?
7 days, but really it can be a little bit different based on the moisture of your skin. But really 7 days is what you're after. Yep. And that's really that 3rd to 5th day, the tan's really good. It might fade gradually after that. And that was a really important metric for us as well in terms of performance.
Some names that came up. What got on the cutting room floor? Give us some of the options that didn't make it.
So Bondi was pretty there, and it was actually Blair and I didn't come up with the name. It was actually one of our friends who was part of the business initially, and he did pull out in the end because of reasons. But he did give us the name. I remember it. I was at the back of the car. We were throwing names around, and at the time we were doing a photo shoot with a model for content for launch. We didn't have a brand name. We're throwing things around. We had Bondi Body. I think we had Bondi Tan. We had, then Michael said Bondi Sands, and we just thought about it. Said, look, that's a really good generic name in the sense if we did more categories over time, we can really throw that in. We just need something around tan. We didn't need something around the body necessarily. How do we make it a bit more generic in terms of the feeling of Australia? And then over time, how do we throw in these brand values and visual identity and brand equity?
Piggybacking off Bondi, an iconic location, how important was having Bondi in your branding? It's everything.
It was really important. And also first to market was really important. There's a lot of Bondi brands now over time since we launched. So really first to market in we really protected ourselves in our category, but it was really important from speed point of view that we really own that name, more importantly overseas.
Yeah, we really should have locked down Black Fox, Red Fox, Purple Fox. God, the copy.
No, but what a lesson in marketing. I know that you came up with it, mates in the car, but in actual fact, on reflection, because you look at things even like Byron gets like Byron Bay Kombucha. It's not made in Byron Bay, but that name can conjure up such a meaning to you. And Bondi to most people is
sun,
the best beach in Australia. It's sun, it's tan, it's summer.
Energy.
Definitely.
All that.
And it really made sense. And look, data for me has never dictated my decision making. It's guided it. I think data
I'm the same.
Plays an important
I
role.
very rarely look at the data. I go for the energy around what's happening and what's engaging people.
Yes. And this time data did say to us, which was important, the top 3 markets in the world. And from when we scaled the business, we said, okay, we want to be, and this was quite early on. I'm a very long-term business planner and very clear in terms of where we want to take this company. We said, okay, we're number one Australia, then we'll take to the UK. Now, UK understand Bondi. They get it, like really quick. So from a marketing point of view, we don't have to spend much money to understand our storytelling. US is a different story.
Did they know much about Bondi?
They call it Bondi for a start. So it was really about how do we, not just the Bondi as the beach, but really the Australian positioning, which they do get. So for us, we just have to, it's called think global, act local. It's really important in a marketing model. How do you think global in the brand are the real macro brand values?
Irwin Sands.
Localize it.
In America.
Well, you know what? Those sort of talent things, that they work.
Yeah,
absolutely. Because America is a little bit more, what can I say the right word? A bit more dagging.
It's kitsch.
In terms of how they engage to certain content. And for us, though, is picking the right Australian positioning for that without being too daggy.
How important was also, we had one of the co-founders of Frank Body on last week talking about eliminating, like how for WHITEFOX, it was about eliminating key person risk. How do I get Marty Fox off the tools? How did you then remove key product risk? So was it all tan up until a point, and when did you have to layer in the different products to give yourself that ability to penetrate a global market?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think when you in our industry, some of the most important people, I'm not just saying this, Marty, because I think you'd be doing speeches on this every day, but the salesperson within your company is critical. And sales for us, I define the salesperson in 3 criteria. I'm not sure, mate, if you've got a different opinion. I've never found a person who's got all 3 skill sets. The first person understands data and collates it and looks at it, which is really important when you start to get bigger in category and you start presenting to retailers, especially some of the biggest retailers in the world. Then it's the salesperson who gets all the data, looks at it, and then defines a strategy around it. What's the right decision to make? And that could be on product peripheralization, it could be on SKU rationalization, it could be the right SKUs in the right stores. Things like ACV or commodity volume is really important. Like understanding, okay, we've got all our products in Walmart, but we're not actually at the right market share. Why is that? Well, we're missing out on Target in these 3 states. So it's really comparing these metrics. And a good salesperson will understand that very well. Third salesperson, which I think is really important in a startup, is the visionary, can communicate the strategy at a high level. And we were very fortunate to have, obviously, Blair and I as founders to do that quite well, but also a really early staff member in Jordan was so strong at that. And he traveled around the world and really was our key speaker in presenting our brand, which is key. So,
and is Jordan still part of the company?
He's not now. No, he actually he's doing his own thing, which is fantastic. He actually, after we sold, he moved on to Gem. He's done a great job for them. Really helped them really scale the last couple of years. Now he's doing his own brand. I'll give him a shout out. It's Hairification. I think he's doing very well. So he learned some great skills through Bondi. But really that technical side of sales, when you start we got 140 SKUs at the end. So you're really looking at things like, okay, what is working? Are these SKUs not right for this country? Or do we have to do a new formula for Canada? Is it really worth it? Because the risks of us not selling it, the COGS, it's going to be on our balance sheet, deletes, expiry. So it gets to a point where your sales and your category and even your financial team really need to understand what the right model is. And
at the time of sale, what was the percentage of self-tanning versus other products such as sunscreen?
What we're attractive as a business, and I can talk percentages, is that out of those 3 markets, the 3 major markets, Australia, New Zealand, UK and Europe, obviously part of Europe, and then Americas, was 33% really each in terms of revenue. So we're quite equally split.
That's very attractive for a
very
purchaser.
Attractive. And we had market dominance in self-tan in Australia, over 50% market share, close to 60% in some retailers. UK, we're up to 45%. High Street, which is Boots and Superdrug, over 50%. And then we had sun care coming through. And we're getting some really decent market share in single digits within Australia and the UK, and had the number 1 SKU in SPF in Boots, also in the UK, in our fragrance-free line. So really we're growing this category quickly.
And was America the lagger?
No, America, all our strategy was for America was making sure that we understood our business back to front in every level before we launched in America. And Blair and I made probably a poor decision. Well, we did make a poor decision back in 2017 when we were chasing the American dream based on the size of the economy, the biggest retailers in the world. We knew we could work, and we loved America as well. We just loved the country, and we knew we could make this work. Unfortunately, made a bad decision. A distributor at the time, they were wrong people to manage the brand. It set us back, not necessarily financially, it set us back by a couple of years. And we thought to ourselves, you know what, let's get this right and we'll do it ourselves better. Let's build up our capital more, understand our scaling with cash flow, balance sheet, our targets a bit better. Let's have a bit more dominance in Australia and UK before we launch big, which we did. We launched in Walgreens across I think it was 12,000 stores. Because we did so well with Boots in the UK, and they just merged as 2 companies, and we had an amazing launch.
So you tried to get other people to launch your brand in America.
Yeah.
It failed.
Yeah.
So then you came back.
Yeah.
Understood what had to work.
Yeah.
Went into the UK yourselves.
Yeah.
And didn't give it to a distributor.
Yeah.
Did you and Blair go over together?
Kind of the right timeline. I think we were in the UK. We had a model when we got to a certain revenue metric within markets that we'll remove our distributor, which is a really difficult thing to do. And we did it in all our markets at the end. We really used our distributor, and distributors can be really good for your brands, don't get me wrong. But I think when it gets to a certain revenue multiple, it's too much risk to outsource it. Who look after your retail accounts, having daily conversations with buyers. And also,
what's the risk that they don't deliver and the retailer turns on you?
The risk,
or is it more legal?
The distributor has multiple brands. So what's your share of voice within that brand? Now, you can actually put parameters around that you want dedicated staff members, but really integrating the culture of your own company with a distributor is quite challenging. And also from a financial point, Marty, there is a margin to get at the end that you want to get back to yourself and reinvest back in the business. So it gets to a certain point, but there's also a risk in doing it. Then you have to look after the full supply chain. So looking after warehousing, your sales staff, your operational teams. Then you decentralize the business with your software. So it becomes a bigger business.
I tell you what, selling a service versus a product is a hell of a lot easier.
Yeah.
Mate, it's huge.
A product you haven't told us yet some of the challenges early on with the product, and
yes,
you've got a consumable effectively, like it can go off.
Yes.
We're selling homes, they are what they are. Like
trust me, homes can go off.
They
don't sell. They're bad properties.
But there's challenges with that as well. Like they've got to be kept at a certain temperature. I'd imagine the way it's distributed across countries and logistics.
It just sounds expensive.
Yeah, we really want to push innovation, as I mentioned, regarding active levels, different dye structures, different ingredients. Unfortunately, one of the ingredients, that was just really bad luck. One of the ingredients wasn't stabilized properly in terms of supply chain. It got too much heat in terms of logistics, and therefore when we put it in there, it was unstable and really impacted our DHA. So when we launched a Priceline, which is an amazing agreement to get, an amazing customer for us, for all these years, we launched big with them, and we were selling quickly. I think we got to and we'll touch on that now. We had political reasons with the banning of the solariums, which we think was fantastic in terms of that direction for Australia. It really helped the category. Also, social media, we were really early adopters of it. So we were probably one of the first brands to a degree doing influencer marketing, paid social content. Blair and I realised our skill set wasn't in that, but we got social media people in pretty quick. It was all about content and storytelling and making sure we're getting that through. So we really concentrated on what I call the hedgehog concept. And if people understand Jim Collins, good to great, it's something I talk about a lot in my business. I've talked about a lot for 10 years. And he put it across multinationals. You can talk about your department. What that is first and foremost, can you be great at what you do? And we believe we could be great at self-tan. Not necessarily SPF or skincare, we'll go back in a second, but we thought we'd be great at self-tan. More importantly, are you passionate by it? And having a passionate group, whether it's the founders or your staff, your external stakeholders, distributors, your retailers, or your partner, you get people passionate behind your strategy and vision. That's everything. So can you be great at it? Are you passionate by it? Does it drive your economic engine? Now, that's really important. I do speak to founders these days who come to me, and one of the things I do ask them pretty quickly, besides a broad question, your vision and what your strategy is and how you're going to solve some of these customer problems, I ask them some financial questions. And if they don't answer me pretty quickly, I don't think they're across their business. So you've got to make sure in our industry, which is vital, do you have the right GP, gross profit? Do you have the right COGS, selling price, supply chains? Do you understand every trade price in the market? It's very important in my industry that you know that back to front because I've seen so many brands go under because I just didn't understand those hidden costs in Woolworths, those hidden costs in Coles. So it's very important to understand that framework. And
when you say brands go under, and a lot of brands go under, were there ever speed wobbles with Bondi Sands as you were growing, whether it be through a legal implication or a problem with the product or structure? Was there moments where you got close? And then on the other side, where were those moments where you had such growth that you had to pinch yourself?
Yep. So coming back, on the innovation side, one of those moments, obstacles was our product turned green in the market with Priceline. So we had to get those products back.
It was green when it was coming out.
Yeah. Yeah. Still tan people, but they look like Kermit the Frog. So I remember Blair and I were actually in LA. We got these emails coming through. And we saw 2 or 3. I said, okay, this might be a bit of an issue. And then all of a sudden we had 15, 20. I was like, okay, people are buying our product, which is good. Yeah. But we've got this issue now. So we confront it pretty head on. We rang up Priceline quickly and said, look, we think we've got an issue. We don't know what it is just yet. We're going to come back to you within 2 days. What we had to do is fly back, got to understand our manufacturer. Now, we could have just said to our price line, nothing, and got a manufacturer first, but we thought such a great relationship with the buyer because we know they'll be getting feedback. We'll tell them first. We're investigating it. We understood what it was. We recorded. I think it was about 30,000 units at the time.
Couldn't just discount it?
No.
Had to get it all
I
back.
had to get it back.
Was it the manufacturer that then had to rectify?
Yeah.
So you weren't out of pocket for that?
Financially a little bit, but it was really brand equity. Like imagine launching it. It was the second batch. Imagine launching a brand and then suddenly you got products you got to recall. So I think Priceline was such a supportive partner on it. We were concerned by that more importantly, and obviously concerned by our customers not getting their ideal experience. So we rectified that quickly. People still got a tan. The issue is when they put it on, it was green. When I washed it off, it was okay, but it wasn't what we wanted. So that was an obstacle, definitely. We didn't panic, and we obviously gave some good resilience. Throughout the scaling of your business, the one stressor that we constantly had to a degree, I can talk about this a bit more detail because it's really important, is cash flow. I think you got to understand cash flow back to front. And when you're scaling our business, we're doing, say, back in 2015, 8 to 10 million. At the end, we're doing close to 200 million, over 200 million in gross revenue, so sales. So it was a huge growth.
So were you hitting 200 million at the time of selling the business?
Yeah. So it's a big business. And a lot of brands within multinationals don't necessarily get to that level within their brand ecosystem. So we're doing very well, and we grew it to a significantly. But throughout that growth, when you're growing, one year I think we grew from like 40 to 80. So you're growing really
Was
constantly.
that the UK launch year?
Yeah, I think so. It was around that time, and we launched to Europe and had a massive pipeline into Walgreens as well. So it was huge growth, and I realised that capital and cash flow were key. And this is a really important thing about stakeholders and partners and transparency. And I think what I was quite good at was getting people along in terms of strategy. And I really treated banks at the time as a real key partner, not a bank. I actually presented a bank like I present to Walmart.
Do you know what's crazy? The bank has been my partner.
Yeah.
Like without having the bank available, because within HQ, it's literally, it's us, it's me and my wife.
Yeah.
Without their support, and I've always said to them, you're like the business partner that I never had, because without your assistance, we can't get going. Like that cash flow can kill you.
Absolutely can. And our profit, we're doing great profit. Profit's one thing. I always say profit's good. Like you want profit, but you need cash flow as well. So when you're scaling, because our balance sheet was going from, let's say, $2 to $3 million in stock. We're holding 45 million at the end in stock. So it's a lot of money to pay for in stock.
And you probably, and on that journey of growth, you probably didn't want to sell down any equity.
No. So, and we'll talk about that in terms of that opportunity as well. But it was really important for Blair to really own the strategy and vision. And it wasn't necessarily selling equity. I think it was bringing the right partners in at the right time. And we probably never thought that was the right fit for us. But building that cash flow model was really important for us. And the banks, Australian Bank initially was very supportive. We got to a certain international level where I think they didn't have the knowledge around it. And when we end up with, which is all public, we ended up with Citigroup, who also advisors at the end. So it worked really well for us in terms of that business relationship. And they're integral. And even to this day, I say that you're really going to make sure from a financial point of view, they are business partners. Like bring them along if you're really clear. Now, you also got to hit your targets as well. Like it's very important when you speak to banks, you don't miss targets. And I think we really did hit our targets, if not succeed it. So they were really always happy with our performance. But I was really transparent with them and said, we need this based on this launch, this balance sheet increase. If you support us now, obviously we're a great business. We're very profitable.
You'll get your money back.
Exactly. Plus more on the interest you pay. So no, it worked well. It really worked well.
And as a CEO, like during that journey, like you're also learning and growing. Like this is, as Marty touched on, this is your first real business. You're the CEO. You're running the game. Like, how did you make sure you stayed sharp? You stayed, in a good mindset? Because we're talking now 12 years later, but during that process, you're changing as well. Your whole life is changing. You're traveling. This business is doing nuts numbers. And there's a lot of stuff, as we've spoken to Erin Deering, who went through it with Triangle, and Jess Hattis, who went through it with Frank Body, is that it's not all sunshine and roses when businesses are growing like this. There's a lot of stresses. How did you sort of...
And were there mentors along the way that you had?
How did you transfer?
Yes. Early on, I had mentors at RSFE as well. Some great leadership there, really taught me a lot. But moving into Bondi, I had a person in sales who worked for our distributors, but also worked at Revlon, who was really strong, Craig Stewart. And he taught me a lot in terms of the retail world, and that's really one thing I wanted to get quick. I really understand these retailers, how they think. And he was great to say, Shaun, never go in to present to a retailer and just present your brand. That's the number one thing you shouldn't do. Present what they want as a retailer. And I remember when we presented to Boots, and I used that knowledge and say, okay, can someone find me? Can we just get someone in the UK to find me Boots' corporate plan? I just want to know what it is. Find it. And we took ages to get it because really they don't hand it around. It's really just supplies, but we got a hold of it. And I looked at one of their points.
From what? Some internal?
This is back in 2014, from their internal business plan. And one of their points was they really want to attract the Gen Z customer. And at the time, Boots was really attracting 40 plus, really strong loyalty program. I think the most members in the whole of the UK through Boots program. But they're really seeing a gap in terms of the younger audience. And I think Superdrug were taking a bit of competition. Tesco are doing a few things. Sephora and all these people coming through. So they wanted to position themselves moving forward as Gen Z. I looked at that and said, guys, all we have to present is Gen Z. And our brand was Gen Z. I said, let's just present. We'll get this customer into your door. We know we will. We'll market to them. We know we've got a product offering for it. Our whole model, our whole brand ecosystem around this customer for you. And we nailed the presentation in terms of every data point that we wanted to see, but more pleasing.
Was that the preso that Jordan did?
He was there. Our first 6 months, 68%, I still remember this, 68% of new customers that we brought in were new to Boots. And of those customers, 90% of them were Gen Z.
So what you're saying is you don't walk in there and go, Bondi Sands, we're great, this is what we do. You say, This is what we will do for you.
And so many brand owners do that. They just talk about, and I love that because you want to be passionate about what you do. But
it's what I've been trying to tell the agents here. We're selling engagement.
Yeah.
Higher engagement equals more inquiry equals more inspections equals more offers equals a high price.
Yeah.
We're here to sell engagement.
Yes.
That's what WHITEFOX is the best at. And
buyers in these big retailers, they've got their own performance targets to hit and stresses to achieve, and that changes. Like in the 13 years I was in Bondi, there was Gen Z, there was social media, which is a massive thing that everyone want to be great at. There was sustainability. There's a number of different portfolios that came through. So as a brand, you got to understand, okay, I don't want to jeopardize our magnetic customer, and magnetic customer for your listeners is really a core customer. But how do I ensure that we do relate to this retailer in our sales strategy? Because they're a really important part of our growth. So you got to find those levers, and that takes preparation. And I remember I used to read. I'm very curious, and a lot of my leadership team are very curious, and it was something we really wanted to do. I used to read annual reports of L'Oreal. I just wanted to read it. What are they doing? Why are they doing it? I just to get it out and read it. I read every corporate plan from our retailers. So when I went in there, I like to think that I had the knowledge to present something, not just in our offering, but what they really wanted to ensure was achieving their corporate plan. So preparation is really important, especially when you've got that time, that meeting, that chance. And also, it's not just a big retailer. I say preparation is about when you negotiate with manufacturer, be prepared. I just go in there saying you want X. Say you want X, but I'm going to give you 100,000, 200,000 units in the next 3 years. And this is how we're going to do it. But you need to support me now. Like that preparation is really important. I think I instilled that our leadership team, that making sure you don't go in a meeting unprepared for that. Because if we're prepared, we'll get the right outcome for our customers. That's what we're out there for.
That's pretty awesome. Just so you know, we only got him for a few more minutes because he's actually got a business meeting on the golf course. He's told me
where are you playing?
I was just told to share about this. I'm actually a member at Woodlands, so I'm playing down there. But I've got to.
No. But we've got to maximise our time with you. So, okay, the journey continues on, and then we've already talked about the sale and the exit early on. Marty got straight into that. But so, what did that mean to you? Because you've just now stepped out of the CEO role. Bondi Sands will always be part of you. There's no doubt about that, and you will always be part of it. The next step for you, you're a young man.
How old are you?
42. Yeah, I've had a chance of reflection. I think we sold back in December. I spent a year, obviously, transition as the CEO, integrating the businesses. I caught up with 40 of the staff actually a couple of weeks ago, and it's still, I get a bit emotional when I see them because they're such a part of me, my family, my brand identity. And Bondi, when you create a brand, as you know, Marty, it's a person to you. Like I even when I see it on shelf, I can't help myself. Tess laughs at me because I'll fix up the products and do all that sort of stuff. It's not mine anymore, and they'll obviously grow it in the right ways. And
could have you held on for longer?
I think it was the right time to. We really want to make sure that we win in America, and we thought Cal the best company to help that. That was really important for us.
Do you have
SPF,
any involvement whatsoever financially?
No,
it's fully out.
Fully out.
Okay.
Yeah. But it gave me a chance personally to look at probably my next steps, and obviously getting paid that amount. I want to make sure that I set my next stage of my life similar I did in business. So from an investment point of view, I appoint an investment committee. I've got a chair, and we look at a number of different things over the last 18 months, what we're investing and not investing in. And I really enjoy that. But it's quite passive because there's a bit of capital preservation there. But
when you talk about that, I mean, what are the things that now you've got those funds? What do you look at? And what is that team?
Yeah, so I've got 3 people in the team. One's probably more macro economist in terms of what he looks at globally. And I've got 2 people who are more my financial advisors, wealth managers, but they've also got a good skill set across a number of different portfolios. I really do, without saying who the advisors are in the different groups, I do create competition amongst them in terms of what they do, and it feeds up to us and making sure from an equity point of view, private credit, property, developing, we've got a diversification strategy that makes sense to us and what we enjoy.
But you're also hands-on and entrepreneurial. So yes. You want to get back in and under and build.
Yes, so that doesn't satisfy me.
Not at all. Yeah, I'm listening to this going, this is so fucking boring. This is like the shittest. Like he's having fun by getting these 3 guys competing with each other. It's what are you getting your hands dirty in?
Yeah, so I actually have got a bit of a non-compete for a bit, but I am working on something that's exciting in terms of what I really find passionate, and without saying too much, back to the product space and how I'm looking at that in terms of that next stage. And what I can give away is that, without giving too many clues, is that when I looked at certain parties, and I noticed in Australia, there's probably not in private equity in particular. There's no one really who specialises in beauty or consumables, and even consumables to a degree. And in America, there is a couple, and I thought, it's a really good opportunity to look at that longer term to really add value to founders that really want to grow their company outside of Australia or even in Australia. And I think one thing private equity are brewing at, and no disrespect to private equity, there's some brilliant people in there, but there are a lot of financial analysts in there. I think it'd be great to create a team that really can add value across the whole ecosystem of building a brand, but
more human to human.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
I know what you mean.
Without giving too much away.
Yeah. And one question that I wanted to ask you, for somebody that can genuinely pick up your family and move and live anywhere in the world, and you've lived all over the world, where and why? Well, first of all, you're back in Melbourne. Mm-hmm. Melbourne's home. Mm-hmm. Why is that? And in this position, is there anywhere better for you? Or is Melbourne just something that we don't realise that we've got everything here?
Yeah, it's a great question. I do think about it a bit. Blair's actually moved across over to Europe, and he's enjoying himself over there. Tess and I discussed it. We just finished building a beautiful home here in Melbourne, which we're really proud of and we really do enjoy. We've just had a young baby in Romy, and she's 8 months old, and we're really enjoying that. And we've got a property in Byron Bay, which we just finished as well. And I really enjoy that connection of Melbourne to Byron. Mm-hmm. And I do love that parts of Australia. In terms of overseas, look, I always wanted to live in America. I always loved America. It was just something that I thought, from how optimistic they are, the retail economy, the whole economy is based on consumables really to a degree, but there's just so many smart, great people over there. And obviously I know it gets a little bit of a bad rap sometimes, but I've always loved it. I don't see myself moving there short term, but that could be an opportunity for us. And Tess really enjoys America as well, but I'm never saying never. I think we want to, even though I love my childhood, I love what mum and dad did for me. I do think I like to do something different for my kids. I got the ability to do it, maybe to grow up in a different environment or culture for a period of their life. And Tess and I have discussed that, what that may look like. But
Well,
I think
even me just doing that for 6 years in New Zealand was
Yes.
amazing. Like my
Yes.
mates that were all based in Melbourne, you know, they didn't get to experience like little old Dunedin,
Yes.
120,000 people, university town just above Queenstown. Like it changed my life
fantastic.
for 6 years. Like,
Fantastic. Love
arse
it.
end of New Zealand.
Yeah,
Loved it.
But how cool that you've recognised, and I asked this question of both Aaron and Jess, in terms of like, as I said, you've gone through the struggle and the pain and success of this business, and you've come out the other side financially rewarded, which you deserve. But now you're able to do these things and making the most of it for your family's sake, for your own sake. That's awesome. What an opportunity. So you're making the most of it, which I think is really important.
Yeah, and I think though, and what's just as important though is, yes, there's a financial windfall, but I didn't change anything. It was really strange for me. Like there was a great reward to get that, but it was also quite emotional to let go of my company. So I think,
But nothing changes.
no, it doesn't change.
And what's
at all.
crazy is like you reflected on like watching your dad on the farm and the hustle and like you said, up at 4:30, and then you said, "Mum, workhorse." You know,
Yes.
like you want Romy to see that too.
Exactly.
And you've got that in. So it doesn't matter what's sitting in the account post exit. It's that hustle. That's
Exactly
and
right.
cracking the codes and the challenge, and
Yeah.
you know, you're never going to stop.
No, and I really wanted to have a bit of a break, but I'm struggling. And Tess knows I'm struggling a little bit because I'm getting up at still early, and I like to train and start my day. But I get a lot of things done before 9 o'clock. I'm sort of looking around.
Yeah, it's funny. If you,
Well, you go to the golf course, mate. That's where
it's
you
funny
go.
if you see my wife and people say, oh, Marty's always up and at bat, this, that. If they answer the question, hey, when was the first time you ever saw Marty depressed?
Yeah.
She'll say when he was 22 and he sold his first business for $1 million.
Yes.
At 22, I literally sold this little app for $1 million bucks.
Fantastic.
And part of it was a 2-year thing. I had to go work at this business selling like IT products. And I was finishing work at 5 o'clock, 9 till 5. And I was genuinely a shell of a dude.
Yeah, I can
It was
see that.
bizarre.
And as I said, I still feel like I'm quite young and hungry and to do things and grow things and work with people. Like I am a real people person as well. I've always loved the office environment. Bondi was really unique. I'm a big person in work office, and for innovation, serendipity, all these things was innovation funnel. Bondi was extremely innovative, and we did that because we worked together. And I'd missed that. That's why I found we did find COVID quite difficult because it was quite online and we sort of lost that ability to event things. It's coming back a bit now, and obviously each company does it a little bit differently, but I've always been a big believer of in-person innovation culture. And I think I missed that part.
Well, I'd follow your stories literally from years ago, watching, you know, the little events that you'll do for your team members, the balloons and the Bondi Sands. Like, it's amazing. Like they were burnt into my mind of, okay, well, when we grow and we're doing things, I want to do internal events like that. Great. It was quite inspirational. Just from, you don't even probably know, but well, you won't.
Yeah.
But that stuff means so much to people watching.
It does.
The culture's important. The culture's important. It starts at the top. And so, you know, well done on everything you've done. Like you really did change the face of, certainly in the tanning space, but I think in the beauty space in general in Australia, just the mindset of like brands and how they can cut through and become global from an Australian standpoint.
And for businesses out there, Australia realise what a great reputation we have in terms of our industry, in terms of quality, trust, brand travel. So there's a real strong opportunity here. I think I get a little bit disappointed in terms of our manufacturing future. I think we've got to invest more in it. I think we're letting a bit too much go. And I think in our space, there's some good facilities coming on board and more innovation happening. But I'm really passionate about Australian manufacturing. And hopefully we still invest in it because I do think it's a bit of our niche and we can leverage that globally because people do trust us in quality and execution. So there's a huge opportunity for our country.
Well, we're likeable as a nation.
We are.
We learned that with China.
Really
China wants our products. They think we're trustworthy. So
definitely.
That's awesome.
Well, mate, thanks for coming in. I wish you were here last week because I had a white ass for the marketing of my house and that shit house. White ass real estate.
Shaun Wilson, thank you, mate.
You.
We look forward to seeing what's next. Well done.
Thanks, Shaun. Cheers.